What is up, everybody? Alex from WMD here, back at you again, and this time we're going to be talking about Metron and S.BUS. In particular, in this video, we're going to be using Metron to control the Malleko Voltage Block, sending it program changes to change presets and kind of make them work more as a unit together rather than two separate modules. So what is S.BUS? S.BUS, also known as Select Bus, is a way of using the bus board to send MIDI program changes from one module to another. So every powered bus board has a CV and gate bus that was originally used to make your synthesizer a little bit more of one unit. You could send one gate signal, you could send one CV signal over the bus, and you could make a monophonic synth that way that you didn't have to patch. And so that's not really being used that much anymore. So some manufacturers got together and said, what else could we use this bus for? And agreed that MIDI program changes would be a really cool way to do this. So one thing about S.BUS or Select Bus, each company kind of does this in their own way to make their modules work with each other. So Malekko and the Voltage Block and the Variegate 8, those work really well together. The Variegate can send these save messages so you can actually get more banks and things out of your voltage block. Make Noise has their own way of doing it with the Tempe and Renee and their modules. And we're no different. So we designed our S.BUS to work in the way that we wanted to have it work with our modules. But it does work really well with other people's modules, and that's what we're going to show. So on my voltage block, I can save on the panel, I can save 16 presets, and we can choose which preset is going to be recalled with Metron. So we can do this every time you load a new project, or every time you have a new variation, or in each sequence, you can actually sequence the presets. So if that's something you want to do, you can do that. All right, so let's just dive into it. Track number 13 here, this is my gate track. So I'm just going to send 16th notes into the voltage block here, and that's also triggering my envelope. And now I'm just going to send a reset signal on step 1, so voltage block is resetting at the same time as Metron. So let's write a sequence real quick. All right, cool, I like that. Let's put some smooth in there. All right, that's cool. All right, so I like this sequence. I'm going to save it. So I'm just going to hold save on the voltage block, save it to number 1. And now I'm going to make a new pattern, or a new sequence in voltage block. All right, I like that one. Let's save it. All right, so now let's make one more. Cool, I like that one. Let's change the smooths here. All right, cool. So I like that one. I'm going to save that one to number 3. So now I have 3 presets saved on my voltage block. So we can recall them with voltage block here. Just hold recall, press number 1, 2, and 3. So what if we want to do that remotely? Well, we can do that via Metron. So the first thing what we're going to want to do is we're going to go into the global menu. We're going to use encoder 2 here to scroll over to where this display says S.BUS direction. And we want that to be set to out. This means that Metron is sending MIDI program changes and it's not going to be receiving them. You can change that with encoder 1 to off or in, which means it's going to receive messages. Off, it's just going to completely ignore them. But we're going to use out for this demo. This means that it's sending those messages to voltage block. Now, voltage block requires a handshake message. This is really important to know, as your voltage block won't respond until it receives this message. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go into S.BUS and we're going to press track button number 1 here. And that tells voltage block to start listening to messages, saying, hey, I'm here. I need you to listen to these messages. So now you can see in the S-Bus we have two lanes here that are dimly lit. The top one is essentially a 17th track. This is your S-Bus track. This is where you're going to assign the program changes to the step that you want it to change on. And then this second row down here, these are the changes from 1 to 16. So these individual track buttons, these act as banks. So right now we're sending on the A bank. If you have voltage block messages or voltage block presets saved in other banks, you can recall those just by going into the different of these 4 banks here. And that's how you're going to get to the different banks in something like the sequential switch matrix. So for now, we're just going to use the bank number 1 here. And we're going to say preset number 1. I want preset 1 to be on step 1. So now that just changed our sequence, and now we're listening to preset number 1. So you can see here that this LED is breathing. It's kind of flashing. This is saying that the preset that we're looking at currently is on this step. It's very similar to how random burst and gate work. So let's say we want preset number 2. We can now see that this is no longer breathing because it has, but it's bright. It's bright because it has a program change on it. It does have a message on it, but it's not the one that we're looking at. So let's change this one to be the one that we're looking at. So number 2, we'll just press step number 1 again. And now when it comes around to that step, it changes. So let's say halfway through we want to go back to 1. So that's how that works. All right, so let's make a new variation here. I'm just going to say I want to copy A, put it on B. Let's go listen to B. And let's change up these programs. Let's change up the gates. And let's listen to this with number 3. All right, so we're going to go to S-Bus, and we're going to clear out the messages that are in there because I copied A to B, and that copied my program change information. So how we do that is we just hold clear and hit the track. And now we have no program change. So I'm going to say I want number 3. Let's just listen to 3. All right, cool. So that's number 3. I like that sound. So I'm going to assign number 3 to step 1 on this variation. And so now when we go back to A, we have the information stored on variation A. And this is these 2 variations, 2 patterns, excuse me. And then we'll go to B. So this can be really useful if you save sequences on voltage block or another S-Bus device and you want to recall them with Metron. All right, so that's variations. What if we want to do a project? So I'm just going to say I want to save this to project number 1. So I'm just going to hit save, go back over here, and let's make a new sequence. So I'm just going to bring up my pattern here. And then we'll make a whole new sequence here on voltage block. So when I wrote that sequence, it went back to the same sequence we were playing. That's because every time that this S-Bus message comes back, it sends that message again. So every time this step comes around, it sends that message. We can change this so that way it only sends the message once when the variation is recalled or every time the sequencer is manually reset. We do that just by pressing this encoder like a button. Now this says 1, and it's only going to send that message once. So now that we've already sent that message, I can go and write a new sequence. All right, cool. So that's my new sequence. I'm going to put this one, I'm going to save this to step 4, or preset 4 on voltage block. Now I'm going to go back into S-Bus, and I'm going to say 4 I want on step 1. We're going to copy B over to A, so that way that's on our A sequence here. So let's save this one to project B here, project number 2. So now I can go to project 1 and load it. And now we've got project 1 here. And when I go to project 2, we've got our new sequence there. So I feel like I kind of just grazed over the all versus one function, so I'm going to go through that in a little bit more depth. So right now, if we go into S.BUS, we can click this encoder, and we see that we can the display will either show one or all. If it's set to all, that means that that program change is going to be sent every time that the step is recalled. So every time you go by that step, the program change will happen. This can be useful if you want things to reset and you just want it to stay like that. But at the same time, if you want to write a new sequence or you want to do anything in your voltage block, improvise a little bit, every time that recalls, it's going to reset back to that preset. So if you switch over to 1, it's only going to send that program change one time. And it sends it when the variation is recalled or when the sequencer is manually reset. So it's a cool thing to set it to 1 here. And we'll just play a sequence. All right, so let's recall. Let's go back to S.BUS. And let's put 1 on this sequence here. And that's page 4. I'm going to make a 1-page pattern. Just to make it a little bit simpler, we'll go into S.BUS, assign 1 to step 1 here, and then it did not change because it's already sent a message, right? So we'll just hit reset, and that switched our variation. But now we can go through here, and we can change up the voltage block, right? And we can just mess around, and then whenever we want to recall, we can either hit reset or just trigger the variation to start again. And it will recall that preset. So as you can tell, this is a super useful tool, really great for doing program changes. You can do them in the middle of a sequence like we showed. So you can actually change the presets in the middle of a sequence. You can do them by variation, just by assigning them to step 1, or you can do them by projects by assigning them to step 1 on the variation that you want to load, or on variation A that's going to load with the new project. So super useful thing. A couple things to note: to clear an S.BUS sequence, we just go into S.BUS, hold clear, and then hit the track 1 button, and that's just going to clear out our sequence. You can also change the pattern length with S.BUS. You can just go into S.BUS here and choose a page, hit pattern length, and then hit the last step of the S.BUS track. That can do that individually, and it will also follow any like global lengthens. So if you do a duplicate pattern length, or just go to a page and hit pattern length plus the page, it will extend the S.BUS messages as well. So that's something to note. Super useful, and we are just really stoked about the idea that you can use S.BUS in any way you want with this method. So you can, like I said, you can do it in the variation, you can do it on multiple variations, or you can do it between projects. So a great way to kind of store a live set, get things ready, and recall things on the fly by only using your Metron interface to recall anything on your voltage block. It will work with other S.BUS modules, and I will definitely do some demo videos on those when I get my hands on them. But that's about it. So thank you guys so much for watching. As always, if you have anything you want to see, modules, demos, anything like that, throw them in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.